about it, man. No matter what you're doing, you're selling. And with that, you're going to need to negotiate. No matter if you're talking to a family member, a coworker, a boss, or a client. No matter who it is, there's negotiation in all things. But are we manipulating people or are we really negotiating? In this episode, we're going to tackle that. Going to give some clear distinction and help you to make sure you're doing the right thing, and that is negotiating. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on today's episode, we have an amazing guest. Her name is Susie Tomenchok, and she wrote a book called The Art of Everyday Negotiation Without Manipulation. It's a fantastic book, and I think the principles that apply to this not only going to help you in your sales career, not only is it going to help you as a leader, but it's going to help you as a parent, it's going to help you as a daughter or a son or a cousin. It's going to help you as a human being, and there's powerful principles. Susie works with individuals, with organizations, and help them to master negotiation in a more effective way, in a natural way, and how they can do this without manipulating people. I would highly recommend you check out her book. We have links in the show notes, as well as check out all of her content via the links in the show notes. I won't take up too much more of the time, but if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, baby, because we're going to give you some good information. Let's go ahead and dive in. Speaking about good information, take us away.
So when you go into a high stakes negotiation, it's all about preparation and being aware in that moment to understand what the other person is going through and how do you get them to understand where you're coming from or what you need or what are those barriers that they have that are their interests that they need to overcome in order to move forward. And then when they're ready to say yes, to close. So I have a framework. So prepare, aware, close, and then evaluate. It's called PACE. And the reason I put that in place is because for high stakes negotiation, as I mentioned, it's very important. You prepare, you really think in the moment, you make sure you're objective as possible. And when you see the signals and you know when it's time to close, you close. Even in a low stakes negotiation, just taking a few minutes before you get on the Zoom or before you walk down the hall, just to get your thoughts together. Think about, how do I prepare? We tend to not avoid, whether it's a difficult conversation or it's a high stakes negotiation, we want to avoid that situation. But the more we put into it, the more objective we can be in the moment to be agile, to understand the interests of the other person and uncover things out of curiosity to understand how do you get to the end and if you can get to the end. So that's really kind of like how I like to look at it, is if you think about it with a framework in mind, you have your plan on how to move forward. Yeah, I think that most important thing is really talk about what is that relationship and what are the interests of the other party. Understand what's important to you. But I like to think about leverage. We often think of leverage as the price point or the terms of the deal, the length of the contract. Those are all important, but there's all these other associated pieces of leverage that are in play, like your perception of the other side being more prepared or having a higher lever points for the deal. It can be if there's something that happens in terms of timing, somebody's pulled away. So I think that if you explore all the different pieces of leverage that are at play, even the situation, they say that there's real science associated to, if you do a deal over a meal, that people are more likely to come to a solution that honors both parties. And they actually did the study around eating, and then they thought maybe it's just sharing something that together. And so they tried the same studies around doing a puzzle togetgoing and that they weren't as successful. So really thinking about, what is it going to feel like? Where is it going to be? Who's going to be in the room? Who's the decision maker? Who's going to be our lead? How are we going to practice silence? Who's going to anchor the deal? Those are all pieces that are like part of the story that's going to, unveil itself. So as sales leaders, the more you can do, especially if there's more than one person on your side associated to the actual negotiation, is think about it. It's not just when you get in the room, the negotiation starts before that. But once you can like really uncover all the things that are at play, even if it doesn't come up, you're ready for it. It's not unexpected. It's not going to trigger you to have to think quickly and go, oh, I hadn't anticipated this. I'm nervous. Now I can't think clearly. Where am I going? And that's kind of what gets us sideways and not getting where we need to go. Gosh, I think asking, people always say like, what are your 2 keys? And asking is one of those. Just out of curiosity, if seeing no as a starting point and teasing beyond that, it does a lot of things. What it does is when you ask questions, sometimes the other person, it enlightens them to go, oh yeah, I can give you that. Or I hadn't thought about that. Like there might be some easy thing they can do if you're solution oriented. It also, if you kind of are losing your nerves a little bit, if you ask a question, it kind of allows you to get your breath back and think about what you want to next, and just really listening. And just moving beyond the no or the rejection. Like we tend to, we think in our mind that no is easy for the other person to say, but really, as we all experience it, it's a challenge to say no.
Yeah.
So it's funny how we have such a different experience with that. So asking is just such a key to building relationships, understanding their interests, and moving beyond to understand and uncover. I mean, negotiation is really creative and using your imagination. So that's asking questions help tease out those things. There's the rules of silence if you just are trying to be real prescriptive about it. One is, as soon as you're done with whatever offer you're putting out there, if you're anchoring or you're throwing out, whatever it is, and it makes you nervous, it's like it takes courage to say it. Really practicing that, hearing the words out loud so that when you say them out loud, not just in your head, it doesn't feel foreign. And then practicing not saying anything after. And then you have to adjust your mind to go, okay, like I often have to say, the first one to loses, the first one to talk loses, the first one to talk, and get yourself really busy.
Yeah.
So that you don't interrupt yourself.
That was Susie Tomenchok, and if you haven't connected with her as of yet, please go ahead and do so. I told you this episode was going to be great. And the principle that I'm taking from this, there's so many, the silence piece, the one about leveraging, like there are a bunch of things that I could take and apply to different areas of my life. Oh, and can't forget about anchoring. I need to be able to anchor a little bit better. So there's so much in it. You can check out her book. You can find details there and tell her you heard her on the Sales Evangelist podcast. If you have not connected with your homie yet, please go to LinkedIn and search Donald C. Kelly. Donald C. Kelly. Donald C. Kelly. That's me on LinkedIn, the Sales Evangelist. And if you love our podcast, leave us a rating and review. Tell your friends about it. Let people know the benefit they can get from this podcast, as well as check out our sponsors. Because our sponsors, we've worked together with them to give you some amazing stuff. And if you're not taking advantage of that, listen, I don't know what to tell you. I'm giving you some good value here, some good deals. So check out our sponsors. Tell them you heard about them on the Sales Evangelist podcast. It would be greatly appreciated. As always, I want you to find more ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things.